What's up, ring makers? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Trevor, and this month we'll be making the Chiron ring for the November sub box. Every month we dive into epic tutorials that break down everything you need to know to make awesome rings with your monthly sub box. We'll cover the tools, the materials, and techniques you need to turn your box into a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. Whether you're a first-timer or a pro, you're in the right place. Alright, so hit that like and subscribe button and let's get ready to create something amazing. Alright, let's talk about what's in this month's sub box. Alright, in this box you'll find our purple glow powder, amethyst, lavender opal, tungsten ring blank, our violet pigment. We have some genuine silver leaf that we'll be including. Alright, so now that we've got our supplies settled, let's go make the Chiron. Alright, ring makers, so to start us off, I just wanted to crush a couple of our larger amethyst pieces so that they were about the same size as the lavender opal we're using, just so everything looks nice and even. For the amount that I'm using, I did about 40% amethyst and 60% opal. For the pigment and glow mixture, we didn't film it, but generally with the pigment, less is more. So use as much glow powder as you're wanting to for the ring. I'd say either start with a quarter or half vial, so you can save the rest for another project. And then just do small amounts of pigment until you get the desired shade you want. Alright, so for the base layer of the ring, I am just putting a thin layer of our thick CA down on that channel, just making sure that that bottom channel is covered, and then I'm pouring our purple pigment glow mixture on top of that. If anything isn't sticking where we want to and we're getting some of that metal shown through, you can just add a little bit of some super thin and then pour some pigment on top of that just to keep it covered. But generally, as long as you have that nice thick layer of the CA on the bottom, you should get full coverage on that. The reason I'm doing this purple layer on the bottom is that when you break up amethyst into smaller pieces, it generally tends to be more clear the smaller you go, and so this way with that purple bottom layer we'll get a nice purple looking amethyst when we have our finished product. After you have that base layer down, I'm making sure that it's cured, and I usually will wait just a minute or two after using the accelerant so that there's nothing lingering, because we're going to do another thick layer or another thin layer of our thick CA down right after this, and we don't want it to cure too fast. So after we put that thick CA down again, I'm pouring on our 40-60 amethyst opal mixture. And once everything is in there, I'm gently pushing everything down with the back of my tweezers just to make sure it's all touching that thick CA. And then I am just pouring on some more of our pigment mixture to fill in any of the gaps. It'll get stuck on any CA that is showing. The reason I like to do this is I think it adds some nice depth to the ring. You get some cool like mountains and valleys types looks. After we do that layer of the pigment, I am just wetting that mixture with the super thin CA, just enough to darken that pigment up. Again, we don't want to add too much super thin or else it will just kind of glop out, everything will just fall out. So we're just doing a tiny bit of that super thin, just enough to change that pigment color. For the next step, I am going to be adding our silver leaf. And when you are working with silver leaf, gold leaf, any of these really fine leaf metals, just make sure you turn your fan off and try to control your breathing so you don't blow away that leaf on accident. It has a tendency just to kind of get caught on any wind there is and disappear. So for that silver leaf, I'm just taking little pieces. Sometimes I'll kind of pinch them in my finger to make it a little crumpled, give it a nice look for it, and I'm just sticking it in some cracks or crevices we have left in that inlay. And I'm just applying it randomly, just kind of planned randomness, so it doesn't look too manufactured. Once I get all the pieces of the silver leaf placed in there, I put another small layer of that super thin in just to hold everything in place. And then I'm going to add just a few more sprinkles of that amethyst opal mixture on top. Not trying to cover up the silver leaf per se, but to maybe add a few pieces on top of it just to kind of break it up a little bit, so you get more of that planned randomness in there. So after I get those final sprinkles on there, I'm just going to let it cure, and then I'm going to be slowly building it up layer by layer with that super thin CA. I generally will keep filling it until it is completely to the top of that channel. And once it's cured is when I'm going to use the rotary tool to sand that off. And I'm using an 80 grit drum on that rotary tool just to take it off nice and quick. It is a tungsten ring, so you don't have to worry about scratching that. After that is sanded flush, I am going to do a quick wet sand. Generally I do a 220 grit for just this quick wet sand. And I started with that in this video, but since amethyst is a bit harder, I switched over to 180 grit. I like to use that for any of the harder stones or gems that we have. And so I'm just sanding that down a bit, getting rid of any of those harsh lines, and making a small little divot at the top of that channel that will fill up with super thin afterwards. So after we do that quick wet sand, I'm just drying off the ring and looking for any harsh lines or gouges from that rotary tool. If it's white, it will usually show up if you add super thin, so I just like to take a sharp razor blade and kind of gently scoop out any harsh white lines. Just make sure you use either some cut-proof gloves or something to keep your fingers safe from those razor blades. I'm also looking for any holes that there may be, and I did find one on this ring, so I just scooped it out a little bit with the edge of that razor blade and added some more of our pigment mixture in there. And after that, I am sealing everything in with one more layer of super thin, letting that cure, and then I think I do a couple more layers, usually about 3 more layers of the super thin, just to build that channel back up to the top, a little bit above it, so we can sand it down flush with that. So after those final layers of super thin are cured, we're going to wet sand, and this time I will do 220, and then I'll switch over to 500 once it gets close to the top of that channel, and then once I feel like I'm almost completely flush, I'll switch over to that 1000 grit to get everything nice and flush with the top of that channel, and clean up any of those rough lines. And then to further clean up any micro scratches we may have, I am going to use our step 1 rough polishing paste just to really give it a nice shine. If you want, you can take it way past 1000 grit. You can take it as fine as you want to try and give yourself as clean as a finish as you want. I think that generally this will give you a nice finish. But if you want to make it as nice as you possibly can, feel free to go even more with those fine sanding grits and polishing pastes. But after we apply that polishing paste, we are left with a nice ring. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think the silver leaf poking through those cracks looks really nice, and then you get really good depth with those clear pieces of amethyst, and then with just any of those leftover hills and valleys we have from building up with super thin. Lastly, just make sure to comment below what you think about this month's sub box. If there's anything you didn't like or would like to see in future videos, just let us know and we'll try to incorporate those next time. As you can see, we are in a new location, so we don't have our old studio, so we're still working out some kinks. But if you have anything you'd like to see implemented or changed, just let us know in the comments and we'll do our best to make that happen. Do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new tutorial from us. Until next time, happy ring making, guys. Thank you.